In vitro fertilization. Hey, it often raises issue under the law. And that takes us to this week's case. It involves a real couple in Virginia. They were unmarried, but they wanted to have a child. So they said, okay, let's do that. But before we do that, let's enter into an agreement as to what's going to happen with regard to raising that child. So they did. And under the agreement that they both volitionally agreed to, they said there would be joint custody in the event that they split up and that each party would have visitation rights to this child. All right. With that, they decided to go forward. Well, they're having a little problems having a child, so they went the route of in vitro fertilization. He donated his sperm, and a child was born. At the time the child was born, they both signed an agreement that acknowledged he was the parent of the child. All right. Everything's swimming along here, and then they broke up. So now what's going to happen? Well, interestingly enough, she jumped up and said, "You are not the parent of the child. You're not the father." He said, "Wait a second. How can you say that? I donated my sperm. We entered into an agreement. You acknowledged that I was the father of the child at the time the child was born." She said, "No, you're not the father of the child, because under Virginia law, we have what's called assisted conception. And under the assisted conception law, it provides that any unmarried male who donates sperm will not be considered the father of the child." Now, the reason, of course, for that is so that some man who does provide sperm will not suddenly become saddled with the obligation to rear a child, many times a stranger to him. Okay, but she looks to that statute and she says, see, under that statute, you're not the father of the child because you were unmarried and you donated the sperm. He said, that's not the agreement we had. Case goes forward. And it finds its way to the Virginia Supreme Court. And there the Virginia Supreme Court looked at this and they said, well, you know, wait a second. What we have going on here in this state is we have a statute that really is designed to assist couples who go the route of in vitro fertilization. And it is set up in such a way that a male who donates sperm, many times to a complete stranger, is not going to be saddled with a paternity obligation. So what's the whole purpose of the statute? The whole purpose of the statute is essentially to facilitate in vitro fertilization, not to prevent it from happening, but to facilitate it. And so people aren't going to get caught up in all kinds of common law issues of paternity. In this instance, however, both of you, agreed as to what was going to happen. You both agreed you would have joint custody and have joint visitation rights. And then you went forward and you gave birth to a child, essentially. We therefore find that the whole purpose of the statute was essentially met, because you did use in vitro fertilization and you did enter into an agreement that provided for the welfare of the child. In view of that, we find the agreement stands. The agreement stands, and you do have joint custody, and he is, under the acknowledgments that you signed, the father of the child. Even though the statute provides otherwise, that is what you both agreed to, and that is our holding, that your agreement, in fact, is binding. Okay, so what do we learn from this? Well, we learn a very important thing, and that is that two adults who volitionally, freely enter into an agreement can sometimes accomplish something in their relationship that the law would prohibit if you looked at the law and looked at it literally. And the reason that can happen is because, again, of the freedom of the contract, and if your basic motivation for the contract is essentially in compliance with the law, even though it doesn't meet the literal language of the law, you can have a contract that will be enforceable. It's an important right that you possess under the common law that we enjoy here in the United States, and a right that you can exercise in some very unique ways. Should be done, I think, with the guidance of somebody who's legally trained, but it is a right that you do possess. Okay, we offer you this case as we bring you cases every week, so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.